Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Great.
Yeah, excellent. Now, we could do an introduction about you, but I think you're the best person that knows more about yourself. So why don't you give a quick introduction about Lynda Monk to everyone?
Sure. Well, I'm a coach and I live on Salt Spring Island, which is on the west coast of Canada between Vancouver and Victoria. And I have an organization called the International Association for Journal Writing, and it's largely a membership and education community for journal writers worldwide. And I love spending my days immersed in the world of journaling. And I've created a program called the Art of Journal Coaching with a dear colleague, Eric Maisel. He's a creativity coach and author of over 60 books now. I love writing. I've written 5 books now and co-edited books, and I love creating journals and courses, and I love doing a lot of group programs. I have shifted from my one-to-one coaching, which I did for many years, primarily in the area of burnout prevention with helping professionals. It's been a big part of my work over the last 25 years, to hone more in on the therapeutic value, the healing value of writing. So that's a bit about me. I'm have 2 teenage sons, and a dear dog, a husband, and I really love everything to do with personal growth and trying to live our best lives, especially in complex times.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hello. And what is it about journaling and writing that, speaks to your heart so much?
Yeah, well, it's been an abiding practice in my own life. When I look back, I'm 55 now. When I look backwards, I think what's kind of one of the key things that's really been helpful to deal with challenges, to grow myself, to care for myself, what's something I've loved to do. And I always arrive to the same place, how much I've loved journaling. I started journaling when I was a young girl. I journaled as a teen. I journaled in my first decade as a social worker working in very high stress, high trauma work. And I always found it very enlightening and calming and soothing, something I could turn to that really allowed me to ground myself and to be reflective and intentional with how I was living my life, how I was working. And so it just has been that thing that has always been there. And when I've got away from it, it's always the thing that pulls me back. And so I've just grown in great reverence for the power of the practice. And I've seen it be so transformational in my clients' lives, in my friends' lives who journal, that I really just think, wow, here's this thing that's so simple to do, to pick up a pen, go to the page, and get so many benefits from it. It doesn't cost anything other than those simple tools, can be done anywhere, it's portable. And I think, how many things can you say that about? Inexpensive, accessible, and so profound to do. So I'm just a real champion of it and grateful to know about the power of journaling and to share it with others.
Absolutely. And how did this thing that you've just kind of always done become a profession
Mm.
for you?
Yeah, well, like all of our professions, we ebb and flow with where the path is taking us. And I think that's especially true on a path as a helping professional, as an educator, because nothing stays the same. And so we're always, I think, evolving and adapting and coming into new opportunities, especially if we're open to that. And I know in the world of coaching, that openness to what's possible is a big part of our work, and I think then becomes a big part of our own life path and career path. And in the case of journaling, when I was in my 20s, in that first decade of my work as a social worker, when I did my master's of social work degree, I dedicated it to burnout prevention. I really wanted to know because I was seeing colleagues burn out and there was lots of people on stress leaves, and I could see how stressful and emotional the nature of the work was. And I thought, just doing I've done 3 degrees in this to become a social worker, to be a social worker. And like, I hope I haven't signed up for an inevitable path of burnout. So I was very curious, how do you do this type of work and stay well doing it? Stay healthy, stay engaged, not burn out. And that became my core question in my research when I did my master's degree. And while I was doing that, kept coming across reference to the importance of having a reflective practice, taking that time to reflect on what you were learning from the work, a place where you could unburden your own emotions and process them. And journaling was often mentioned as a strategy that could help with that. And I thought, that's it. That's my secret sauce. I'm already a journal writer. Maybe that's why I haven't, burnt out yet. And I want to keep it that way. So I got really curious about that and started looking into the healing power of writing, started exploring research that was available in the field that was showing that having an expressive writing practice where we write about our thoughts and feelings can, in fact, have a healing and restorative value to it. And so I thought, I want to share this with other people. So I created a workshop called Journaling for Self-Care for Social Workers to share what I was learning. And then I left my work as a frontline social worker and started my own training and coaching practice. This is many years ago now, back in 2000. And I was doing these larger burnout prevention workshops in organizations, how to deal with compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, burnout, occupational hazards, and high care professions. And I would always include a module or an activity on journaling. It was just part of the broader context of the training. And when I would get the course evaluations back, what did you like most about the workshop? These sorts of things. People often mentioned they loved the journaling. And I thought, well, I love the journaling. So I'm going to make a whole day workshop on the journaling. And I just started to kind of bring it more and more. And in my individual coaching, I would often bring journaling right into the session, if people wanted to do it, and I would offer some guidance, and then we would use what they would write as part of, it was really just that pause in the coaching session where they could gather their thoughts, really just take that time to be with, tune into their own inner wisdom and bring that strongly into the coaching. And so that kind of became, a thing. And I ended up turning my whole business, which was called Creative Wellness, into how to use the healing power of writing in for helping professionals. And one thing led to another. It just became more and more of what I was doing. And um, 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to take over the leadership of the International Association for Journal Writing. It had existed since 2009, was founded by a wonderful woman named Ruth Follett in Florida. I was a member. I actually taught courses through it. So I was very familiar with the organization and I became her successor. And then that has made a whole other world expand in the world of journaling. And here I am now, and I'm excited to see what will happen next.
Oh,
Who knows?
When you talk about journaling, you always say journaling and writing. Does
Mhm.
journaling need to be in writing, or can you do that also in speaking voice? In
Yeah, yeah. You can do it any way that helps you get it done. So if someone would rather dictate or they would like to do, there's lots of people who do art journaling and mixed media journaling and junk journaling and bullet journaling, and there's many different types of journaling. So it is a creative practice. It is something we should make our own. There's no, sort of right or wrong. But when I'm talking about journaling, like transformational journaling that can lead to, new insights and growth, I still am mostly in the land of taking that time to write. And part of that is because there is quite a bit of research around the neuroscience of writing and cognition, memory, accessing emotional centers in the brain that still has a relevance to the written word, language, narrative, story structure that's relevant to a journaling practice. So all of those other ways of getting what's on the inside out going for a walk and dictating into a phone or other forms of journaling. They're all wonderful and rich practices for self-discovery. And the written word is still a space that has its own
Yeah.
world in it that is relevant to what I do and what I love. Yeah.
Interesting. How much of the power of journaling is about getting it out, and how much is it about seeing or interacting with what just came out?
Yeah, it's both things. If people orient that way, so there's a certain education that's needed to do that pause and reflect. Because lots of times people traditionally use journaling as a sort of getting it all out. People will often journal when they're going through difficult times, but when things smooth out, they get away from it, or all they do in their journal is vent and, sort of sit in the difficult things. And in that way, journaling isn't always helpful. It actually can cause some rumination. It can cause people to feel anxious and overwhelmed because the focus is just on all this, sort of catharsis and getting it out. That has value to a certain point. We don't want to just pitch our tent there and let that be the only thing that happens in the pages of our journal. Because to use it as a healing tool, we also want to get at, I always think of it as just like in coaching, going from awareness to action. What about what we've been writing? What can we learn about ourselves from that? What choices might we want to make based on these reflections that we're doing? What's working, what isn't working, where do we want to change, what do we want to celebrate, what do we want to be grateful for. And we can generate a lot of positive emotion and even use journaling to enhance our mood, for example, by focusing what we're writing about. That's why things like gratitude journals are so popular, or having a practice at the end of the day. What did we appreciate about the day, or what did I learn today? Or using our journals as intention setting tools, starting the day, what do we hope for from the day ahead? So I really use journaling in a lot of very intentional ways. It's much more than, sure, there's places in there where you're, getting your stressors out or trying to solve a problem or capturing just the day. It's a storytelling practice, a self-caring practice. It's a lot of things at once, but it's very important to when people do stop and look at what they've read, or they do stop to say, I always think of it like, now what, so what? You've written all this down. What did you get out of it? How do you want that to support you in your life, your career, however you might be using it? So I think both things are hugely valuable. And I think thinking about where we go in the pages of our journal is valuable as well.
Is
Yeah.
that a challenge for many people to be that writing maybe not, but then to start thinking, okay, what I have written. So is that then probably where you as a coach or other coaches about journaling or maybe AI, I don't know, that you can reflect to and say, hey, that's what you've written. What does it mean for you? What are the emotions? What will be the next steps?
Yeah, that is a place because we can be very habitual in how we think. And part of what we're trying to do is expand how we think, open to new perspectives, open to new possibilities. And that's where journal coaching or coaching itself can be so helpful. What are you noticing here? How does noticing that impact you?
Mhm.
What do you want to do with what you're noticing? Is there any actions you want to take? Anything you'd like to do differently? So really kind of pulling it apart a little bit and being very curious about what's there and what offering the writing itself has for you can be very valuable. And that is a skill set to have that kind of self-reflection. You're kind of reflecting on your reflections. And there's a technique called the reflective write, where you actually, after you've done some writing in your journal, you actually reflect on that. What did you notice in your writing? What did it give you? And that reflective write, there's lots of people who teach about it. I included in some of I've created a 5-step journaling method called Life Source Writing. And the fourth step is to actually reflect on what you just wrote. And you can use simple prompts. You can use what I notice about what I wrote is, which is more of a content reflection. What I feel about what I wrote is, more of an emotional reflection. And often those reflective rites give some of the most valuable information from the journaling, as much as the journaling itself.
Does not surprise me at all. It's one of the things that as coaches that we can reflect back what we've heard the client say. We can prompt connections of things that we're seeing. How does this and that sort of fit together? And that meta level reflection that you spoke to, I think that to me is one of the biggest opportunities um, to learn about what we're thinking, not just to have the thoughts, but to think about the thoughts
Exactly.
and the feelings and the experiences and what's going on, to bring all of our experience into our awareness gives us that heightened level awareness of ourselves.
It's a deep mindfulness practice because we're learning how to observe our own minds. We're learning how to observe our thoughts. We also meet the fleeting nature of our own minds. And we come into much deeper self-awareness by having that regular self-reflection practice. And journaling isn't the only way we can do that, of course. We can do that through other types of mindfulness practices, meditation, for instance. But journaling, I often think of journaling like meditating with a pen in my hand because we are listening within, we're paying attention, we're tuning into our emotional, our inner world, we're tuning into our outer world, what circumstances are going on. So I really think of journaling as a relationship practice. It's about that relationship with ourself, our relationship with the other people. We're often writing about things that are going on, or we don't live in a vacuum. We're writing about who we interacted with and what's been going on, our relationships. And it's also about our relationship in the world, because we live in the context of our lives. And so it's very relational in nature. It's not a vacuum, even though you're there writing for yourself, by yourself, you're doing that in the context of being, in relationship with the life that you're living.
So,
Love the seeming paradox of that. In many ways, the best way to, a great way to connect more with the world around us is to create space from the world around us to first connect. And then from this place of connectedness to reach out and create connection.
Yeah, it's that sort of paradox of, tuning in to tune out, but also there's a tuning out to turn in. And so, we live in such, no noisy times, meaning there's a lot of input in social media and just the news and pe people and busy lives and the modern life. Like there's a lot of activity and noise and input and points of view, and it can really numb us to our own capacity to hear our own thought process and to actually trust the wisdom of our own thinking. And that's something that journaling has been very supportive of in my own life is you get in contact with your own thinking. You also see your own inner, I kind of think of journaling like an inner compass. You get all kinds of ideas, instincts, dreams, things you might like to do, and they start pouring out, in the pages of your journal. And over time, taking action on some of those things builds your trust in yourself. So, for example, when I was 30, I left my frontline job as a social worker, a medical social worker, which I had aspired to that job and really, did enjoy that. But I got this instinct that I wanted to start my own business. As I mentioned before, I started this training and coaching business. But that first came in my journal. And it didn't just come once, it came repeatedly. I started noticing a pattern. Wow, I'm writing a lot about wanting my own business. And I was like, well, why, there's not very many social workers with their own business, kind of an oxymoron to be an entrepreneurial social worker. But I kept noticing it and I thought, well, what would that business be? Well, I really like teaching. I've done some workshops. I'd like to do some workshops. And well, and so just getting curious. And eventually I left that job and I kept seeing in the pages of my journal that I really wanted to live near the ocean. At the time, I lived in the central interior of British Columbia. There's lovely lakes there, but it's nowhere near the coast, nowhere near the ocean. And so that led me to thinking, well, what would that look like? And so I left my job. I moved to an island where I didn't know anybody. I started my own business. But that came because in the pages of my journal, I kept writing about those things. And then that awareness to action, then I took action on those desires, on those dreams. And that's happened many times in my life. And so it's caused me to trust that what comes in the journal is actually really valuable information. It's really authentic to me. It reflects what I really want. You might not always know how you're going to do it, but if you can get in that strong self-trusting relationship with yourself and do that through journaling and other means, you can be more mobilized to take action when you want to, and you might not always know how, but you know that it's you can trust that it's coming through you and that it wants to happen, and therefore you can do it. And that self-trust is a very journaling is a very empowering act, in part because whatever we write is right. We are
Mm.
always the expert of our own experiences. And secondly, it helps us know ourselves and it helps us trust ourselves. And those qualities build our confidence. They build our inner strength. They build our capacity to follow our dreams and take action. And those are hugely valuable things in our lives as human beings. It's what we, as coaches, aspire to help people to do, and hence want to help ourselves to do it as well.
When I listen to you, I see a very similar thing between journaling and coaching.
Mm,
So, because people, when I listen to, when a person comes to a coach, it's actually journaling because a coach is
mm,
asking questions and then can ask that inner deep thinking kind of questions. But a person, certainly it happens to me, is you listen to someone and they're speaking and they ask a question and say, "Ooh, I didn't think about that." And that whole process, because I know some people, it's like writing is like, it's not my thing.
mhm,
And people like
mhm,
a coach could be that person that is like your coaching, your journal buddy, basically, where you can talk to someone and they ask the questions and help you to go through your thinking process. Is that right
mhm.
thinking or
Yeah, definitely. If we think of one of the transformational tools we have in our coaching toolkit, it is the asking of powerful questions.
that?
And of course, then listening to the answers in a deep listening way, and in a way where we're making meaning out of some of those responses. And some of the great prompts for journaling are questions. I think one of the best ways to use journaling as a self-growth tool is to have lots of questions in our journals. So I will give, for example, an activity in a group or with coaching clients to make a list of the current questions they have in their life. Should I stay or should I go now? What do I want to do with this part of my career, this part of my marriage, or whatever, my health, whatever it might be. And because we often have a good instinct about what we're wondering about. And so those questions make great journaling prompts, just like they make great questions and powerful questions in a coaching session. And that's really at the heart of journal coaching is, and the step there is that people are then, going to the page and you're using some of what comes through that to inform the coaching, both in the session and it can be done in between sessions, and so forth. Um, and I really think of, you said writing might not be for that person. There's no one size fits all. It's just like yoga might not be a thing for somebody, or meditation might not be a thing for somebody, but we can think of it as a toolkit. These things can be extremely helpful. Give them a try. If they resonate with us, we can keep on using them. If they don't, we can try something else. We can combine things. I actively combine my meditation practice with my journaling practice. I start every day with quiet meditation and a coffee and go to the page, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm writing with one hand. I'm rubbing my dog's belly with my other hand. She's right up beside me. And so before the day starts with these intentional mindfulness practices that are grounding, that are purposeful, that start the day off in a great way and spread out into everything else that I do. So, and those are the things, that I've embraced that I find helpful. But, we all have to find our things. But um, because I think sometimes people don't understand the breadth of journaling or all the different ways it can be used, there can be an assumption they sort of think of it like the teenage girl in her bedroom with a diary with a lock and key, which certainly that personal, private, safe space of a journal is part of what makes it powerful. You can go there in an uncensored way. You can go there in an honest way. And in fact, if we want to get the most benefits out of journaling for ourselves, and if we're bringing it into our coaching work, we want to encourage people to be uncensored. And they also don't have to worry about grammar and syntax and writing skills because this is a personal practice that's about the process and the self-expression. It's not about the product of
Mhm.
what you create there. You're not writing a book or a blog or where the craft of writing obviously does matter because it's going out to a public audience, but you're writing for yourself. And being able, a lot of people will say, well, I don't really tell the truth in my journal in case someone reads it. And the moment we're censoring our journals, we have turned it into something else. We have turned it into the censored version of ourselves. And, we want to try to not do that. And so, hence we have to keep our journals in safe places and consider the privacy of them and, take care of them as a valuable document, whether we're doing that with, passport or password protection in an online journal or a journaling app or our own paper journals in some way. It matters to keep them as a safe document so we can uh, be honest with our self-reflections.
Absolutely. As you said, it's a creative practice. I love that phrase, and I can absolutely see that that self-trust that you spoke to before, and the simplicity of you don't have to worry about grammar or handwriting or spelling. And I can also see that they are some of the reasons that many of us don't journal.
Mhm, mhm,
That sense of I have to produce a product. It has to look good. I have to do all of this. I have to match my writing with all the masks that I have to hide behind in the rest of the world. And yet you're speaking to that coach-client relationship of creating the safety in this space between the the writer, the pen, and the paper.
mhm.
That coaching relationship creates the safety to experience what's already there. And
And there's something powerful about creating safety on our own behalf. It's very self-honoring to say, how can I make this journaling and this journaling practice an emotionally safe place for me to be, where I can be my true self and I can learn and grow and care for myself through this expressive writing practice.
mm,
And because it helps us have that agency in our lives. It helps us give ourselves permission to express ourselves. It helps us realize we can take care of ourselves. We can engage in this practice and take care of ourselves, and we can make it a safe place to be. And when we can do that in one place, as we know as coaches, how do we do that in other places? How do I create those safe spaces in my relationships? How do I create those open, reflective, curious conversations in my relationship, in my, family, in my workplace, because I'm willing to have them with myself in the journal. That willingness expands out into how we can do that in other places as well. And we're actually skill building. We're learning how to articulate ourselves. We're learning how to self-express, to trust ourselves, and all of those things through the journaling practice. And we take those skills, they're transferable out into everything else we do. And it is a skill set, as we all know, to ask ourselves good questions, to listen for answers, to take action on that awareness. I mean, that's the world of coaching, really.
absolutely.
And
I think
so, yeah.
there's just something really profound that you just said. Um, that is, to create a safe space with and for ourselves. Now, that's a practice, that's a skill that we have to practice and train. And many of us don't do that. We wait for others to create sufficiently safe space. As coaches, we create the safe space for the client to be able to get there. But what a self leadership skill to be able to create a safe space with yourself for yourself, because the only potential threat in that space is actually ourselves.
Hmm.
And that in itself feels transformational, to allow ourselves to be in that space.
Yeah. Inside of that space are other things like being self-responsible, being self-accountable. It's like, but so many times through my journaling practice, I've come to that conclusion. It's like, I'm responsible for this. I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for the choices that I'm making. And so again, that empowering sense, but also that accountability to oneself and the lives that we're living. And it's something that uh, also creating a place of comfort. Our central nervous systems are activated a lot, especially now with a lot of, big stressors and fears going on in the collective, in our world, on many levels, environmentally, politically, economically, sort of all of our big structures are causing a lot of angst, shall we say, and at the individual level, but at the workplace, family level, community level, workplace level, all these levels are being greatly impacted. We see it every day. And we're seeing a lot higher rates of anxiety, depression, from a population health point of view. And so these tools that we can have that can help people self-regulate, self-soothe, calm themselves, get grounded, deal with some of that activation in a healthy way, in an evidence-based way. Journaling has lots of science to it that shows that we can improve our mental health, we can improve our physical health, things that are very important through this regular act of expressive writing. And expressive writing means to write about our thoughts and feelings, not just today I went and got the groceries and walked my dog. We can write about all of that, but we want to be processing our thoughts and feelings through this practice, which is really where the healing benefit can come from. So I see journaling as something that helps us stay in that agency in our lives, that sense of personal responsibility, accountability, and also that we do not just have to be the victims or at the whim of what's going on outside of us. We have powerful strategies for coming in internally to self-regulate and get grounded so we can cope with what's going on outside of us. And I really believe journaling is a very valuable tool for leaders, for coaches, for parents, for any teachers, for anyone. The more impact we have on other people, which is true of coaches and many other professionals, the more important it is, and I think an ethical responsibility to have tools that help us take care of ourselves so that we, in fact, can be grounded, centered, present, mindful, attentive, well, to do our work in the world. And so I really believe in journaling as a powerful self-care tool for people who are having impact on other people.
I
She's
the
everyone.
reflection that I have when I listen to you, and some people, and or maybe many people will look at this, it's like it feels like an obligation. So my question would be, how can you make it? Because if you want to do this, you need to have fun and you need to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
what can you create to be able to say, hey, how can I make this fun, enjoyable, and not see it as an obligation? Because if it's an obligation, very quickly they're going to stop doing it.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
would be your recommendation to make it really fun and enjoyable and say, hey, that's cool?
Yeah. Find what you love about it. Maybe what you love about it is that you get to take 5 minutes for yourself to tune things out and tune in. Maybe what you love about it is you get to sit still for a few minutes and just be there. Maybe what you love about it is that you get to go buy a journal that you really like out of a stationery store. Maybe what you love about it is cool to go to a cafe and sit down and get a latte and sit and journal for a few minutes. It's something I look forward to. The days that I don't journal, I really miss it. And I really protect it. It's like brushing my teeth. I really don't think about it too much anymore. It's a habit. So it's just part of what I do.
Mm.
Um, whereas going to the gym, I'm always, okay, I gotta get to the gym. It's more that obligation. I do try to make it fun, but it's not the thing itself that's fun. It's more kind of a nice, the benefit you get from
Yeah.
it. Sometimes we're doing things that we may not really like to do, but we do them because they're good for us, because we know there's value in doing them. So, yes, find what you love about it, make it fun, make it enjoyable, make it your own, let it be creative. Maybe you love to play with collage. I often do creative types of journaling as well, where I'll do, collage with images, and then I'll go to the page and write about, what those images are, how they're speaking to me and so forth. Um, I love writing in community. That's a place where, and in our IJW, our International Association for Journal Writing Community, one of the member benefits, and I'm doing it later today, we have a monthly Writing Alone Together circle. I co-authored a book by that title, Writing Alone Together, and it's a practice of taking what is typically a solitary act of journaling and doing it in the benefit of a compassionate, caring, purposeful community. And I really believe in the power of community, and I'm really passionate about that, and even more so because I think community is a very good medicine for the times we're in. Purposeful, healthy, you know, good communities, safe communities where people can do this good work together is really important. And to me and to people who are there doing it. And so, find places where other people, often what supports us to do something is we're connected to other people who are doing it. We have communities of practices, that's coaches. We have, places that if you like fishing, you have people you can talk to about fishing, if you like whatever. And so have a community for your journaling practice. Connect with other journal writers. Have ongoing inspiration and ideas for how you can go to the page in effective and powerful ways, and really cultivate your practice and see it just like, if you're in meditation, you can go to your meditation group. Yoga, you go to your yoga classes. Go to your community for your journaling practice so you can be supported and inspired as you go along. So, and sometimes you might not want to do it. Sometimes we don't want to do lots of things, even if they're good for us, even if we like them, we still might not want to do them for whatever reason. We're tired, we have too many other things to do. But see what you can love about it, let yourself love it. And also pause to notice what benefits you're getting out of it, because that can help anchor it in as important. It's like, wow, I really notice when I journal that I feel a lot calmer, or I feel a lot clearer, or I just feel better. And so I'm going to get back to that, or I'm going to take a few minutes. And you don't have to do it for long. You don't have to go away for a month to be a journal writer. You can set a timer for 5 minutes and grab a piece of paper. It can easily and conveniently fit into the wholeness of your life. So let it be easy, let it be fun, get community around you, know why you're doing it, have your whys so they can keep inviting you into the practice, and think of it as something that you're doing that's really good for you, that it's pretty easy to do and can give a lot of benefits in your life, and see where it takes you.
And I think the bottom line there is to learn what you love about it, you got to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to
And
do it.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes you won't like it. Sometimes you might start crying and think, I should do something else. But maybe crying is a little chance to, purge and heal and recalibrate and just trust it. Maybe you write about something you're afraid to see. Many people say to me, I don't journal because I'm afraid what will come out. It's like, well, how's that fear running your life? Where else are you avoiding things? Where else is fear hijacking you know, things. And that's not a judgment, that's a coaching, response. And to get curious about that. And it's like, what, do you already know what you're afraid might come out? Well, I'm afraid I might not want to be in my marriage. Okay, well, it sounds like you're afraid of that already. So maybe journaling about it will, help you give some intentional thought to that. And maybe you might remember why you're in your marriage, and you might even fall in love again.
Hmm.
So you just never know what could happen.
Absolutely.
So, people often fear what could be negative, but in fact, by spending some time with some of those resistances, you may in fact come into what's actually very helpful about that. And journaling can help you do that.
Love it. Well, Lynda, I got a million more questions, and we didn't even touch on AI and technology and all of these things that are happening. But for those that want to connect with you, the the association, how can people find you?
Yeah. Our website is iajw.org. And you can find me there, and I'd love it if you did. There's lots of free resources there, free journaling prompts, and things that can help inspire you to go to the page.
Fantastic. And you said you've written a number of books and there's a number of journals that are available. I'm sure the internet knows where they are, so people can Google you, Google journaling, and check those things out as well.
Yeah. I would say one book, just for fellow coaches, if you were, trying to find one that could be really helpful for yourself and your practice, is a book I co-edited with Eric Maisel called Transformational Journaling for Coaches, Therapists, and Clients. A complete guide to the benefits of personal writing, I think is the subtitle. And there's many featured authors in that book. Every chapter has some aspect of journaling. It has a try this section, it has journal prompts, and you can use it for yourself, but also it's a very great guide on how to bring the transformational power of journaling into your coaching work.
Fantastic.
And that's on Amazon, and yeah.
We'll put the name of that in the link below somewhere. That's awesome.
Thank you very much, Lynda. It was really inspiring talking about journaling
Great.
and talking to you. So thank you very much, and let's be in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and all the best, you
Thanks
guys.
for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.